right, hello everybody. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Taylor Rooks. I am a host and reporter with the Bleacher Report and Turner Sports, and this is going to be such a fun day and an important day. Okay, we're gonna dig into some great conversation about financial education, the debut of how not to suck at money, and so much more. We're gonna have an open conversation with the folks on stage about money memories when they were in college and how they learned to not suck at money and other personal anecdotes. So this is all about storytelling and getting to really know our panelists and their experiences that they too have had with money. And in addition, we're gonna be talking a little hoops since the college basketball season is underway and kicks off here at Georgia Tech tomorrow. Basketball's tomorrow, right? All right. And in the spirit of basketball being tomorrow, I feel like I should introduce the rest of our starting five kind of like I'm a PA announcer, okay? So we need that energy. I need everybody on their feet. I'm gonna announce our panelists, and as they come out, I need, just like it's a basketball game, okay? We're cheering for the rest of the starting five. All right, and if the team is ready, we are gonna do it. He is no stranger to this arena. He guided the Yellow Jackets to their first ACC championship in 28 years and is here to kick off the upcoming basketball season. He's a leader on and off the court. It is John Pastner! Yeah! Woo, 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 woo. Yeah! All right, stay standing until the rest of the team. All right. She has won an NCAA Division I title, WNBA championship, and not one, but 2 Olympic gold medals. She is the VP of Basketball Operations and Team Development for the New Orleans Pelicans. She is Swin Cash! All right, for our next teammates. She is an expert in all things marketing, data, and analytics, and a well-respected member of the financial industry. She is Chief Marketing and Analytics Officer at Invesco US. It's Emily Pachuta. And last, but certainly not least, a familiar face around the School of Business. You might even be in his class. It is Associate Professor of Finance, Jonathan Clark. Oh, I love the energy. Your team is here. All right, feel free to sit. All right, I love the energy in this building. They're all excited to talk about the money. I mean, how phenomenal is this? How are you guys feeling?
Awesome.
Awesome, yeah. It's gonna be a really great conversation. I'm excited to dive into this. One thing that kept coming to my mind when I was thinking about today is how much we all would have benefited from having this at a younger age. So that's exactly where we're gonna start, at a younger age. I wanna hear about the first experience that you all had with money when you really realized, okay, what money was. And we can begin with you.
You're gonna start with me, okay. So my parents never talked about money, ever. But I knew it was important because my mother kept this paper calendar on her desk, and it said PD on the 15th and the 30th of the month, and I didn't know what that was. Finally, I asked her, and it was payday, so I knew that that was important, right? You got paid, that was really important. So that was one big money memory. The other was my grandmother would send me cash for my birthday and things like that. And being able to go after the holidays when there were sales, my mom taught me that, take that $5 from your grandmother and then go to the drugstore. It was People's Drugstore in Fairfax, Virginia. To go there, and then all the toys are half price. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. So those were 2 things that I learned fairly early. Buy on sale, and payday matters. So.
Yes, if there's moms can always tell you when there's a good sale.
That's right.
That's one of the great things about moms. Similar experience for you, Swin?
Yeah, I think my first experience came with my grandmother, and she used to send me to the store, and she used to tell me whatever change is left over, you can buy whatever you want. And at that point in time, I was younger, and it could be $1, it could be $5, but my cousins always wanted to come with me to the store because they knew my grandma was going to let me have the leftover change. And so I had to start figuring out at an early age of, okay, I can't just buy myself something, I have to buy them something. So how do we divide this and who gets what? And that was my first experience of trying to figure out like how I got the most out of the dollar versus them. And so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I love money. I mean, my last name's Cash, so. And then I think really it hit me probably was my graduation. And that was the first time where people were just bringing me money. They knew I was going off to college. And I remember at the end of my graduation, I had like it was close to $4,000. And when I tell you I was on some Rick James, like, I am rich! Rich! It was really interesting because that was when my mom said, okay, we have to start talking about a bank account, you're going off to college. Like, we had the money conversation then because we didn't have much money growing up. So that was my first time, like, having the conversation when my mom was like, let me try to prepare you as best I can, even though she wasn't quite financially, like having financial literacy or understanding and educated in that space. So
Yeah, well, a common thread kind of between both of you all is it was about like getting the money, trying to stack it and get the most out of it. Is your first experience with money similar?
Yes, I can remember when I was younger, just being in the house and having to do chores, and at the end of the chores of every 2 weeks, my parents would always give me a little money for the chores that I did, and then I always put it away. At the time when I was really younger, I remember I had like a little piggy bank thing, and as I got a little older, I took that money and put it into a bank account. And even through those, I remember my dad always telling me, and watching my dad work. He had a great work ethic, and that really set a stage for me. But also understanding that, him always saying, always putting money in its proper place, and making sure that you're keeping things in perspective no matter where the financial part goes. And that has always stuck with me as well too. And not to make money money's important, obviously, but not to make it to the end of all means, and understand the bigger picture of things. So I remember him telling me that when I was younger, and I always kind of stuck in my mind on that. But I remember the value of the dollar in doing those chores, doing it right, because if I didn't do it right, I wouldn't get the money. And I still tell her, and we have a couple of our guys up there, but I still tell them to this today, even when we're practicing, do it right the first time, and things are so much easier. And that's how it was doing the chores. If you did it right the first time, I was going to get paid. And if it wasn't done right, then I wasn't going to get the opportunity to get the money for the chores.
No, that's great advice. Jonathan, one thing Emily was saying is that when she was growing up, her parents didn't discuss money too much. Was money something that was discussed in your household?
No, not really. We didn't talk about money a lot. I think my experiences were really similar to a lot of the panelists and what they've mentioned. My earliest memories are saving up for an Atari and then a Nintendo and trying to buy video games and stuff like that. So those are my earliest memories. And then my big introduction was also when I went off to college, and all of a sudden I had to sort of manage the money that I had. And I think it's 30 years ago I started college, and I remember showing up and all of a sudden you start having midnight pizzas and stuff like that. Then you realize by the end of August, a lot of your money's gone, and how are you going to make it last the rest of the semester? So that was my big introduction to money.
Yeah. One thing I always think about is just growing up, there was like always loose change kind of around the house. And I felt like, okay, a penny, what's a penny? It doesn't matter. But my grandma started saying, take your pennies, put them in the piggy bank, and as you get more change, I will take you to the Coin Star at Kroger, and you'll put it in there, and it'll turn into dollars. And I was like, wow, I really should keep all this change. I think what that taught me was just it will all add up. Even if it seems small, you keep it, and you keep keeping it, and then it will grow into more. And so that's something that kind of shifted my perspective on what money is and what money can be. When you think about the lessons that you garnered when you were younger, how has your perspective on money been shifted by those?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think because my parents didn't talk about money, that's a really bad thing, actually, because then you don't know, right? You end up in college and there's so many things to spend on, and I stepped into all of those bad habits because, you just didn't understand the concepts. So that's one thing that I took, and so with my kids who are, older, I have a college-age son and a daughter in graduate school, Like, we were very transparent about money all along. And so, like, we did something similar to what you did with the change. When we were planning on going on vacation, we kept a big piggy bank, and everybody threw their change in, and then right before vacation, we, get the dollars for it. And that was their spending money on vacation. And it could be quite a bit. And I think that really, you just try to sometimes your parents do amazing things, and you want to copy them exactly. And sometimes you learn from the things they didn't do. And so that was something that really shaped me and how I tried to work with my kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, once everybody turned their coins into dollars, got some financial independence, we want to know what was the first thing you bought when you were financially independent. We'll start with you, Swin.
Are we talking about in college when I thought I was financially independent, or when I went pro? I will say in college when I thought that I had the most money in the world and was becoming a freshman. The first thing I actually brought was clothes. Growing up from humble beginnings, and especially in the African American community, it is not a thing to talk about money. It's not a thing we were taught somewhat in my family to save the money, and so the biggest expenditure for me was going to the mall and being like, I see this cool shirt at Gap. I see, like, back then, people were going to college and it was like Abercrombie and Fitch. And it was like, that's really expensive. Why are you paying that much on a shirt? Yeah. But because now I felt like I was stable enough, I wanted to fit in because those weren't the clothes that I can afford. And so I loved fashion, and I was, modeling when I was younger. And now is my first time to be like, I could get something that's my own. And I brought it, and afterwards I was sick because I looked at my account and it was going down. And that was the first anxiety that I had of like buying something expensive that I wanted, but I didn't really need it because once I had it and I was home, it was just like, this doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So I remember that. There was a lot of anxiety having to go up and down with that because I was taught to save, and not even save in a bank. It was save in like your house, underneath the mattress, like just like my grandma taught us, like that is the way to be. So once I fast forward 4 years after college, the first thing that I actually went and bought was a townhouse. And so I remember graduating college. I didn't have the NIL, and we'll get to that at some point. Good Lord, I wish I was in college back then. But what happened is everybody was talking about buying a new car. And I was going into the WNBA, and in my head, I was taught the best thing you can do is have a hard asset, and I wanted to buy a house. And so I couldn't afford a big house, but I bought a little townhouse, and I thought that was the best thing ever. But that was my first investment, too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looking back, do you feel like that was the moment for that townhouse?
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm. It was because it taught me a lot about responsibility. It taught me about investing as far as the equity in a home. Like, I had to start learning more, and I was scared to death of the stock market. And I had a financial advisor that was trying to bring me along, but I didn't learn as much in college and have access to a cool game and an opportunity to learn. So I didn't feel that I was quite educated enough. And so what I did know was about a home, because I was taught buying a house is a hard asset. You can have that. That's how you invest. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward to where I am today, and I'm like, wow. It's taken a while to get there, but I feel now the student athletes that are in here today, everything you're going to get from us on this panel, it's going to prepare you. Like, you have the resources at your fingertips that we never had, and I wish I did.
Well, one thing Swin said that I think is really important is she felt like she had to get that Abercrombie and Fitch shirt, which is just a white shirt, and it says Abercrombie and Fitch, and it's like $80. She felt like she had to get that because everyone else had it. And I think, how we say keeping up with the Joneses, some people kind of get into financial detriment because they feel they have to do that. So what is your advice for maybe college students that feel like they're having to buy things because everyone else might have those things?
I've fallen into that trap. My first big purchase was when I left grad school, and I went and bought a car. The car was like $35,000. I had no money in the bank, and
what
so
kind of car?
it was an Audi A4. I thought I was just going to be super cool in it, and it was a bad mistake. The car was. the car it kept breaking down. You know, I had to pay money for that. There was insurance on top of it. And then when I went and traded it in, I won't forget. I mean, I spent probably $35,000 on it. I traded it in for about $4,000, and so. It was by far my worst mistake. It had a big impact on me, and I took MARTA here today. I took the subway here today. I don't own a car anymore. It had a big impact on me, but it's always tough. I sometimes think you need to make those mistakes to realize that car just doesn't matter. You know, I didn't need it. I could have gotten by with a used car and been just fine. So there's always some learning from your mistakes, and that can be difficult to convince people of that until they've made some of those mistakes.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons what you said is important is because you're right. Everybody's going to make those money mistakes, but the important thing is talking about them, right? Because now we're telling you guys, I've made so many money mistakes. It's important for people to hear those so they maybe don't repeat them as well. When you think about your first purchase when you became financially independent, what was it, and was it a good or bad decision?
You know, it's a great question, and I've kind of always been in the mentality to save. And I still try to think to that to this day. And I have maybe a different look, not only just again, repeating to what my dad told me when I was younger, and we grew up in a middle class situation, and but you know, I look at everything as even on the financial aspect. Like I look at myself, you're the head coach at Georgia Tech. Thank goodness for Todd Stansbury, who I just give him a round of applause. Todd Stansbury, he's our athletic director and the best AD in the world. And talk about how to handle budgets in last year's pandemic through the COVID. We were one of the maybe the only school and maybe the only athletic department in America to be able to stay even throughout all the stuff. But I say all that and that's a credit to Mr. Stansbury. But I say all that to say that you know, I really believe to live almost well below your means, and to have, you know, the finances there for sort of like a rainy day, and sort of the things that I use to our players, and they hear me say this all the time. We don't need to be cool, casual, and cute. You know, the way we play, we've got to be hard-nosed, and it's sort of the same way with the finances. If you can save, and even just trying to save and put some away, because you never know later on in a rainy day. And so, being able to look at it almost as a gift, and I think, you know, when you have that right attitude, sometimes things just come your way when you least expect it. And I think that it's also in the financial world. I mean, I've seen stories where people have won the lottery and they have more money what they can do with, but what happens, they want more, and instead of just being so grateful for that time, you know, they end up getting depressed and all kinds of things that happen, and people are coming at them. So I think keeping things clear, keeping things in perspective, and as I said at the beginning, keeping money in its proper place. I think that's really important. It's easier said than done. It's easy for me to say that because we all, you know, but I think when you're able to maybe live below your means, save, and see big picture for down the road, you know, for me personally, that's kind of how I looked at it. And so for one of my first purchases, I remember in college, I used to sleep on an air mattress. I could have afforded a bed, but I loved sleeping on an air mattress, and it was simple. And it was, and actually, when I became an assistant coach at the University of Arizona, I kept my air mattress because when I got the paycheck, I was like, I got to just put more away and just keep putting more away. I just keep below my means. And the last thing I'll say with money, I do think simple is powerful. So when you keep it simple, I think it's really powerful. I really believe that. And yeah, so save.
Yeah.
Just put it away.
Really save it.
Yeah, put it away.
I'll never forget, I interviewed Chris Paul once, and he told me the cheapest person he's ever met in his life is LeBron James. He said anytime they go anywhere, the first question LeBron asks is, what's the Wi-Fi? Because he doesn't want to spend money on data. So if you talk about living below your means, that's the way to do it. I wish I knew and had that advice when I was younger. And I wish I also had how not to suck at money. And this is the debut of that, so everybody, cheer for that. Amazing program. So I want to dive into the 5 money secrets that can be learned in that game. And I'll repeat them for you guys, but they are: borrow smart, spend with intention, let your money work while you sleep, save for when things go sideways, and pay yourself first. So those are kind of the 5 pillars of that program, and we'll dive into them a bit more. But I first want to know, where did you find answers to some of those financial questions when you were in college and then after college?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So this idea, I love how sort of you're framing it, this idea of live below your means, save. There is so much tension, I think, when you're a saver, when you spend the first time, right? I just think personally, the first thing that I bought in college, which I shouldn't have bought, was a sweater. And it was such a big deal. It was a V-neck sweater. I can see it to this day. It was a very unique color blue. I kept it until I was like 30 years old. My parents were so mad when I bought it. It was $80. I still remember all this stuff about it. It had holes in it by the time I got rid of it, and it was a lot to get rid of it because it was that moment where you understand that money could be trouble, right? And so I think these 5 money secrets are very important, but they're all about balance, right? And they acknowledge that human beings do like to have some fun, nice things. People want to have fun. They want to go out for food, spend time with their friends, but it's about balance and understanding there is a saving for a rainy day, right? Exactly what you talked about, Coach. There has to be some money for your wants, right? We're human, we want to enjoy ourselves. And then eventually, when you've gotten that balance set, like there is a way to have your money grow while you sleep, which is investing. But you have to do that very carefully. And something we're very conscious of, like our view is long-term investing. We're not there for day trading and things like that. We saw a lot of behaviors during COVID of everyone jumping in to investing, some with less success than others. Investing is not gambling, right? That's the thing. Investing is a science. It doesn't always work out, but you have to understand the fundamentals. And so that's what we hoped that the program would do, was sort of bring it down to the basics, right? It's simple plays. Like in the best teams have simple plays, not complicated plays. And that's what we're trying to do here. And you'll see when you play the game and you do the money secrets, there's sort of ratios for things, for saving and investing and rainy day versus your wants. And like it's just basically bringing it down to the simplest plays.
Yeah, and it's a great way to really learn about those pillars and how you can apply them to your life. So they're able to have that. We did not have that. Where did you get your financial advice when you were younger?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when I was in college, I was a math and economics major. So you would think that if somebody got this in college, it would have been me. And I really didn't. I think when I was in college, I got a lot of the investing advice from a book called A Random Walk Down Wall Street, which is kind of this investment classic about long-term investing. And that's where I got lots of these lessons from, but it was really self-taught. It was really my personal experiences, and that had an impact on me. I know one thing I did several years ago here at Georgia Tech was start a personal finance course, so there would be an outlet for students to get some advice and ask those questions, and so that was an important thing for me to do. But really self-taught. It wasn't talked about in the classroom that much. Maybe some one-off conversations with a professor here or there, but a lot of it I just ended up learning myself.
Yeah, and there really was that phase where everything was books, So I remember growing up, and my dad had Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and do you guys remember that book? He would keep trying to force me to read it. I'm like, I don't know about this book. I'll figure it out on my own. I wish I was more into it at that age, but I think a lot of people really did originally get that first dip into finances by just reading a book about it and then trying to apply it. What about you? I know you said you had a financial advisor. At what point did you get a financial advisor? And what's your advice for picking a financial advisor?
That's a good question. I want to make a brief comment to the point about like the being intentional or letting money, work for you while you sleep. All of those things we've heard, and I didn't learn a lot of it until I, graduated college. But what I would say to the student athlete is this. The one thing that I love about this game is that it brings it to the basics. It's very difficult to be in college, and I remember it. You have so many other anxieties about, like, if you weren't raised and being talked to about money, if you weren't exposed to money, and immediately, like for me in college, getting a Pell Grant, and here's X amount of money that's given to you, how to budget and have those things, have the money work for you, but how to have your budget work for you as well. And then if you have extra money, how to invest, what that looks like. No one's talking about that. And this game really brings it down to the basics for you to understand it. That's what I really love about it, and I wanted to say that because I didn't have it, and I wish I did.
Yeah.
But to your point that you asked me about financial advisor, it was because my mentor, like, I would encourage all of you as well, if you feel that you don't have somebody in your space right now that talks about financial education, seek out a mentor that maybe has that information. A lot of times people are seeking mentors because they're like, hey, Swin, I want to come work in the NBA. I had mentors that worked outside of that. My paps, who I call my paps, and he was a CPA, and amazing CPA in Pittsburgh. And he kind of walked me through once I got into college and afterwards and finding out financial advisor. But I switched also financial advisors when I got a little bit more mature, a little bit more money, and I started thinking about investing a little bit more and investing in businesses, investing in the stock market. So you can grow and people will change, your team will change, but you have to have the right mentality to put the right team around you. And so this is a starting point for you in this game, and going to this website and learning the basics and fundamentals to help you get there.
Yeah. You, of course, know all about team, and it seems like you had a good team around you to know to save and all of those things. How were you able to instill that mindset?
You know, I'm probably a bad person to ask about financial advisors because I've always been a little, cautious before I give my money away. I've always been like, hey, what bank? And I just want to know, are you FDIC insured? I know everything about FDIC insured that you could imagine. And I know that sounds, and I need to be better about trying to, to invest things here and there. But it's going back to growing up. You get that dollar, not just to give it away. And I look at it like, I love every time I go out to eat that I pick up the tab. To me, that's everything. No matter who it is, I'm picking the tab up. And I like that. I like being able to do that. And to me, I've been able to save enough that I can do that. I can leave great tips. I can do those things and be able to give back in other ways as well too. So, but I do think picking a financial advisor is important, and picking the right one that you trust. I know, obviously, I'm not just saying this because it's Invesco, but I know Invesco is, when you look at their name and their brand, you can't get at a better level than Invesco. But I also tell you that's why it's important to get a financial people like an Invesco. You talk to Dr. Clark, he can tell you all the right people. But you can see if you get the wrong person, there's been a lot of people who's lost everything because they say, hey, we're going to get you this percentage. And all of a sudden, it's like, man, is that too good to be true? And then all of a sudden, everything's gone. And you read stories about that over and over. Obviously, Bernie Madoff is one that everyone, but you can read stories all the time. And Mrs. Cash knows about the people in the sports world where that happens a lot of time. By the way, her husband came and spoke to our team. He was unbelievable. And talking about the brand, when you're talking about even about your own self and financial wise, just the brand of yourself as well too. Her husband was an amazing speaker, and our guys were up there on that as well too. But so I think that's an important part of picking the right person on the financial part. That's why having someone talking to people like Invesco who can help guide you to the people that you can trust because of their company. You're not going to end up giving it, and then all of a sudden 5 years later you're looking like it's all gone. And what am I doing? How did that happen? And so I think that's the important part. And there's nothing wrong on dealing with a financial advisor asking questions, being as picky as you can, constantly making sure that you're getting feedback and data. So you know what's going on because that's your hard-earned money that you've earned, and you want to know what is going on and how's it doing. But again, those are just my little 2 cents on that.
Yeah, no, I totally
Taylor,
agree.
can I just say one thing to his point? And he mentioned my husband. My husband says this all the time, so I want to say it to you all. He talks about being the CEO of me. So as a student athlete, being the CEO of me means that your financial person, your mentor, your education person, you have to think about, if you want to have a winning recipe, and I've been blessed to win a lot at every level that I've played at, you have to know who's on your team. You have to understand the fundamentals, the basics, in order to build it up and have success. So even if you had a financial advisor, you start investing. Asking the questions are important. Understanding the basics are important. And also following. You don't just, I love Taylor to death, but if I give Taylor $100 and talk about investing, that doesn't mean, okay, Taylor, see you in a month or two. No, I'm following online. I'm tracking things that are happening. And if things aren't going the way it's supposed to, I'm going to ask Taylor. So that conversation we had, where are we right now? You know, like that's where you have to be. You have to be the CEO of me. You have to go into everything with that approach of, you know what? I have to be the person that is here. I'm staying on top of things. Even if I'm not fully educated in the space, I have the ability and things at my fingertips to get the answers. So.
No, and I love that you said that, because kind of on a broader level, something that comes up a lot when people are discussing money is it's an intimidating conversation. They feel like they can't ask questions. They feel like they don't really know what's going on, and then that kind of leaves a gap in knowledge, experience. So what are some of the misconceptions you think people have about having discussions around money, and how we can fix that?
Yeah, well, that it's private, right? I mean, I think I can say this here. It's like talking about sex. Like, people don't do that. Well, some people do, but like in general, people don't, right? You know, so, and it's exactly the same thing with money. It feels like it's private and somewhat forbidden. So first of all, like get that out of your heads, right? Money should be discussed. You should be able to have a conversation about it with your friends, with your colleagues, et cetera. The internet can be a wonderful thing, and the internet can be a terrible thing. There's a ton of information out there. Go to a trusted source. It can be Invesco, it can be Investopedia, it can be a myriad of things. The game has some links to trusted sources that aren't about Invesco. But it should be a topic of conversation. And it just takes the first time, right? Like, have the courage to have that conversation with your friend, with your professor, with a mentor, with your parent, right? I think you'd be surprised with your parents. I know there's a lot of young people here who don't want to listen to their parents, but you'd be surprised that they might share with you their mistakes as well and the things that they've learned. So I would just say, like, it's up to us to not make it taboo. Right? We have to talk about it. All of you have to talk about it, and then it's not taboo anymore, right? Yeah. Then suddenly, like, people are talking about it and learning from each other's successes and mistakes.
Yeah, and you obviously are surrounded by this. You have conversations about it all the time, and so I'd love to hear what are the things that come up that you hear that you're like, okay, that's not correct. Let's try and fix that.
That's a great question. You know, one of the things that always comes up, and it's whether it's you talking to a Georgia Tech college student, or I've taught personal finance to NFL players. One of the things that always comes up is this idea of risk and return. Like, I can, you know, invest this sum of money and I can double it in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. And you know, it's not possible. It's really, to build that financial security, it takes the long-term view and doing it over time. So that's one of the things you're always pushing back against. Everybody always seems to have some idea of how they're going to get rich quickly, or the investment they're going to make, and yeah, it's just going to have this huge payoff. And you know, my experience has been much more, it takes time to build that wealth.
Yeah, I mean, and patience is something I think that you kind of need with money. I'm not a patient person, so that probably would have been me like, hey, I read this one thing. Looks like I can be a millionaire next week if I decide to do it. And so that's something you learn, and you're like, okay, looks like I should not do this. How important is patience when it comes to money? And I'll start with you, Coach.
Yeah, no, like Dr. Clark said, there are no quick fixes. I mean, as we all know on the panel here, to achieve anything you want to achieve, I mean, you've got to work, and it's going to take, you know, there's not going to just happen overnight. There's no magic wand, and so it just takes time, and that's the same as in earning money. It's for the long term. I think if you're looking for a quick fix, as Dr. Clark just mentioned, you can get yourself in trouble and end up losing it, and because very rarely does those things ever work itself out. I mean, it's the 1 in a trillion does that happen, you know, and the majority, 99.99% of the time, it just takes a long time. So you got to be willing to have patience. And anything that you want to do well in your life, in anything, it takes patience. It takes a lot of time and the long-term vision. And I got to give another shout out to Mr. Stansberry because
shout out, give it up again, yeah.
Yeah, because I know, and Andrew from Invesco would tell you this as well too, and I know you would believe in this about, you know, Mr. Stansberry talks. I know you believe in this too, Andrew from Invesco, just about culture. that is, it takes a long time. It's there's going to be ups and downs, and sort of like the stock market, highs and lows and ups and downs. So it's the culture part of seeing the big picture, not making just a rush or rash decision on a thing where it goes down, seeing the big picture. That's what's so great about Mr. Stansbury, such a belief in culture and seeing the big picture and the vision. And I know Andrew from Invesco, that's how Invesco looks at it as well too. And so that goes back to being with patience, that it doesn't happen overnight. It just takes time. And if you stay the course, and as simple as this advice may be, literally just taking it one day at a time, things usually work itself out if you just stay the course. It always usually does.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of seeing the big picture, that's one of the great things about this How Not to Second Money program. It's seeing the big picture and also the foresight and also understanding the need, that people need a program like this. So I would just love to hear where this idea, was born, and also what you hope to, at its root, accomplish with the program.
Yeah, great. So, Invesco has a long-term commitment. Andrew mentioned it in his opening remarks to financial education, both for our clients and in our communities. This was a really natural extension for us to reach students, and we considered this a very, very important time financially, right? There aren't high risks right now, but decisions that you're making today are going to have very long-term implications on your financial future, whether you know it or not, right? So we knew from our research that 9 out of 10 students had not taken any kind of non-credit financial education course, so there's a need. And 62% were very interested in having better tools to manage their money. There's not a lot of confidence beyond the basics, right? The basics of sort of saving, but there were not much more. And so we did a lot of research with college students and with our board of advisors to understand what are the topics that students want to learn about. And that's how we came about with the curriculum. And so there's very interesting topics in here, I think. And gosh, I think adults could benefit from them. Like how to choose between 2 jobs, we talk about. And I love your point, Coach, about it's not just about the money. And you never find that more than when you have a choice with 2 jobs, right? You think, oh, the biggest salary is the job. Maybe not, right? What's the culture like? What are the benefits? Kids don't even know what benefits are, right? Health insurance, and they match your 401k. What's a 401k? And we sort of decode that, because as you're moving towards internships and graduation, you will have choices. You come from a great school, you're going to have choices between jobs. And so that's really how we tried to be relevant to the needs of the college student.
I love that. And I seriously cannot stress enough, I'm not just saying this, whenever someone says to me, what is something college students should have, I say it should be more tools and just more knowledge about finances. Like, okay, show of hands, people in here who are not students, how many of you wish you had financial tools when you were students? And how much would it have helped? Okay, now for those of you that are students, how many are like, hey, I need more financial tools. I have no idea what a 401k is. When I was in college, and my mom would always tell me, make sure you save. Like, you need to eventually start retirement. You need a Roth IRA. I'm like, girl, I don't need that. I just need But it's like, no, I didn't. If I would have learned more about it, I would have, had a jump start on that. And it would have kind of saved me a headache now that, I'm much older. So I think it's really important. I love that you guys are able to do this program. I do want to say, can you guys all tell me just one financial topic that you were confused about that isn't as confusing, just so people don't feel so intimidated talking about money?
I'll start. So 401k, I was super confused about it. And 2 things happened for me. My PAPS, who I told you guys, my mentor, CPA, he told me as soon as I graduated college, I was going into the WNBA, I was going to be making $45,000, I believe. No, I think it was $52,000, my first contract. And he was like, max out your 401k. And I was like, are you crazy? Like, at that point, I think it was like $17,000 a year, and you're talking about, okay, I'm making $52,000. What are you talking about? Like that. But I listened. I didn't understand, but I listened. I'm 42 now. I can't believe I just told my age, but it did. And we're talking almost 20 years later since I graduated Connecticut from UConn. And when I look at that 401k that he made me every single year max out, I am like, that is why I needed to do what I needed to do. But I know not about a 401k. I know about everything that's, in my 401k. But he had me do two things. One, max that out, and the second thing was he had me look in the mirror, and he said, this is the way you find out like what your tolerance is to invest, okay? If you have $1,000 and if you take 500 and you just say, okay, I'm gonna keep 500 and I wanna invest the other 500. If you were never to get that $500 back, how do you feel about that? And I'm like, I'm mad, I want it back. Or if he's like, if you were to get it back in a year and it would increase and you would have interest on it and it would come back and it'd be like $1,500, how would you feel about it? I'm like, ooh, I like that. And so we started having these conversations of me having to look in the mirror and figuring out like what my tolerance is. Now my tolerance back then when I was younger was completely different versus what it is now. And so I guess I say all this to say, I challenge every student athlete where you are right now as you're starting to learn about investing and being intentional about your money, figure out where kind of your pressure point is, where you want to invest and you feel absolutely okay with it, and here's where, you know what, I feel really aggressive, and if this money never comes back to me, but I'm doing something and investing in something I truly believe in, then it'll be okay. Because if I would have been like my husband, or my husband would have been like most and kept his Apple stock back when he got it in college, we talk about a whole different story, but that's for another day. So I just wanted to share that with you all because that was my kind of experience.
Yeah. I would say, so mine isn't a term as much as it is something I just needed to understand was taxes.
Yeah, that was for me too.
Yes.
Where's
so-
my paycheck?
Yeah,
Like, where's my money?
Where is my
Where's my money?
paycheck? And so not when I was growing up, but when I graduated college, I started making a lot of money at a really young age. I was at this network and I did a show 5 days a week and got $500 a day for the entire year. So I'm like 21, like I'm rolling in the dough, right? I got so much money. But I was not accounting for, like, I would see like half of that because I'm young, I don't have things to write off. And so it kind of skewed my idea of what I needed to save, what I needed to make sure I had once taxes came around. So I would also encourage everybody to understand gross versus net. How much Uncle Sam is gonna take. That is a very, very important aspect, at least it was for me. Do you guys have a term or?
I mean, that was mine.
That was
It
yours?
was like, where's my money? Like, it's like, you know,
It is not here, and I'm looking for it. Yes. No, it's all of that is
who's
super
FICA?
important. Yeah, I know. It's like you got to really have that foresight to understand what is happening, but we're all learning and taking it day by day. But I do want to talk about some basketball. Tip-off. It's coming up, you guys. All right, it's going to be a very exciting year for you guys. Excitement is all in the air. Now, for you, Swin, you of course understand and you relate what it's like to go through college as a student athlete. Tell me more about what those experiences like were for you, what you would kind of tell the basketball players today about the season tipping off. Where does their mind need to be?
Well, Coach will love this. Your mind needs to be right now and on your education in between those lines. That's what it comes down to. When it's go time in the season, I remember it stays with me. Play hard, play smart, have fun. That's what we used to always say at UConn, and I think it's just important for the student athletes to understand, like, this is a fun time. Get your education. Make sure you're staying in class, you're doing what you need to do, but when it's between those lines, give it your all. The fans are gonna be here to support you. It's just a season that you'll never get back. People always think, oh, I have next year if it doesn't work this year. No, you have the here and the now. So education and in between those lines, have a lot of fun. Play hard, play smart, have fun.
Ooh, I'm ready to run through a wall. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. How are you feeling about the upcoming season? I know you're excited.
Well, I hope she can be at our game tomorrow because all of our guys, they all want to play in the NBA. So that would help us if she can be there tomorrow to scout. But I know she has her own team to focus on. But let me just say this. First of all, being at Georgia Tech, whether you're a student athlete or a student, like I always say this, like when I'm recruiting, first of all, the closest I could ever be a student here is to be a basketball coach. And so to be at Georgia Tech, you literally have to be a genius. You are so smart to be at Georgia Tech. For all you students, you are smart. I know how hard the school is. I see it. And when you're here, you're getting to the opportunity to be with people like Dr. Clark and all the professors and the people that you meet and the knowledge that you get. You have Invesco, QQQ coming here, partnering with the business college. Like, that is powerful. When you think about the power of the Georgia Tech degree, and it is, again, not only, and I talked about this for the student athletes, but for the students as well too, I mean, it's why the starting salary for any Georgia Tech student athlete or just any Georgia Tech student of any school in the Southeast is the highest coming from Georgia Tech. I could go down the line of stat after stat after stat of the power of being at Georgia Tech. So from my standpoint, again, understanding about how valuable getting a degree from this institution is. It's so powerful. And then secondly, with the basketball season coming around the corner, I know the studies that you're under and the stress and the finals and midterms. You need the 2 hours to come out and yell at the referees, yell at the opponents to relieve the stress that you've got from being at such a rigorous academic institution. You need that 2 hour stress. So please come to the games. And I'm excited about our group. We got a great group of young men. As mentioned at the beginning, we won the ACC championship last year, which was awesome and great. And one of the players that Jose Alvarado graduated and is now playing with the Pelicans, her team, and so we're very excited about that. And so we have a great group of guys, and looking forward to the season and a lot to be excited for Georgia Tech.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, I love it.